On January 11th, 1999, in Katy, Texas, a cold winter evening unfolded in an ordinary suburban neighborhood where families prepared for the start of a new week. Belinda Temple, a 30-year-old special education teacher and 8 months pregnant, had returned home after school. She lived in a quiet subdivision with her husband, David Temple, and their 3-year-old son, Evan. Belinda's routine was predictable, centered on her job, her son, and preparing for the birth of her daughter, who was due in early February. She seemed to be settling into a peaceful Monday afternoon at home, unaware that within hours, her death would become one of the most debated cases in Texas criminal history. Belinda grew up in Nacogdoches, Texas. She was the daughter of Tom and Patricia Lucas and was known for her quiet strength, her kindness, and her dedication to education. After college, she became a teacher in Katy ISD, working at Katy High School. Colleagues described her as dependable and nurturing. Her family recalled her as organized, responsible, and excited about the arrival of her second child. Nothing in her life suggested danger. Her biggest concerns were preparing the nursery and balancing work with caring for her young son. On the day of the murder, Belinda picked up Evan from daycare around 3:30 p.m. They returned home to their house on Canterbury Drive. Investigators later pieced together parts of her afternoon through phone calls, receipts, and witness observations. Belinda contacted her sister, Brenda, shortly before 4 p.m., discussing normal family matters. There was no sign of distress in her voice. She made no mention of anyone suspicious or any problems inside the home. At 4:32 p.m., Belinda was seen by a neighbor in her garage. Around the same time, another neighbor reported hearing a loud noise that could have been a gunshot, though it was not recognized as one at the moment. The exact timeline between Belinda entering the house and her death would later become a central point of analysis for investigators and prosecutors. David Temple told investigators that he arrived home around 4:45 p.m. with Evan. According to his statement, he discovered the back door forced open and the house in disarray, suggesting a burglary. He said he called out for Belinda, received no answer, and then found her inside the master bedroom closet. She had been shot in the back of the head with a shotgun at close range. The wound was fatal. Their unborn daughter, named Erin, died instantly as well. David dialed 911 at 4:54 p.m. The call was recorded and preserved as evidence. Deputies from the Harris County Sheriff's Office responded within minutes. When officers arrived, they found Belinda face down inside the closet. There was no weapon left at the scene. Entry appeared to have been forced at the back patio door, but investigators noted inconsistencies. The displaced items in the house did not clearly suggest a typical burglary pattern. There were no signs of a struggle in the areas where Belinda had been before entering the bedroom. Jewelry and valuables remained untouched. Crime scene technicians documented the scene carefully. They collected fingerprints, fibers, photographs of shoe impressions near the exterior door, and samples of debris created by the forced entry. They also examined the closet, where they found shotgun pellet marks and residue consistent with a close-range discharge. There were no defensive wounds on Belinda. The medical examiner estimated the time of death to be shortly before the 911 call. Belinda had died instantly. The investigation began immediately. Detectives interviewed neighbors, co-workers, and family members. Several neighbors reported hearing a single loud sound between 4:30 and 4:40 p.m. One neighbor recalled seeing a teenage boy walking near the Temple home earlier in the afternoon. Others reported unfamiliar vehicles near the area in the days leading to the murder. Sheriff's deputies canvassed the neighborhood repeatedly, but no immediate suspect or motive emerged. Inside the house, investigators noted details that raised questions about the burglary narrative. The bedroom closet, where Belinda was killed, did not show signs of ransacking. The rest of the home had only limited disruption. Drawers were removed but neatly placed on the floor, and items inside were undisturbed. Detectives questioned whether the break-in had occurred before or after the murder. As weeks passed, focus shifted toward David Temple. Interviews revealed marital tension, including reports that he had been involved in a relationship with another woman. Co-workers described his behavior after the murder as unusually calm. Detectives continued gathering statements, reviewing phone records, and reconstructing the timeline of the day. Still, No arrest was made in 1999, 2000, or the years that followed. The case remained open but inactive. In 2004, new detectives re-examined the file. They reviewed prior interviews and crime scene evidence. In 2005, after 6 years of investigation, David Temple was indicted for Belinda's murder. Prosecutors argued that he had staged the burglary and shot Belinda during a period of marital conflict. The shotgun used in the killing was never recovered. In November 2007, the case proceeded to trial. Prosecutors presented a circumstantial case built on timeline analysis, witness testimony, and the condition of the crime scene. They argued that David had motive, opportunity, and knowledge of Belinda's routine. The defense maintained his innocence, challenging the timeline and presenting burglary-related evidence. After several weeks, the jury found David Temple guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. In 2016, the conviction was overturned due to prosecutorial misconduct unrelated to the evidence itself. The case was set for retrial. In 2019, after reviewing additional witnesses and new testimony, a second jury again found David Temple guilty. He was later sentenced to life in prison. As of today, legal proceedings continue through appeals, but the conviction stands. Throughout the decades, Belinda's family remained present at every hearing. Her sister Brenda and parents Tom and Pat Lucas consistently voiced their hope that their daughter and granddaughter would be remembered not for the controversy surrounding the case, but for who Belinda was. A dedicated teacher, a loving mother, and a woman preparing for the arrival of a second child whose life ended before it began. Investigators noted that every decision in the case returned to one central fact. Belinda and her unborn daughter were killed in their home on January 11th, 1999, and the events of that day shaped the trajectory of an investigation that continued for more than 20 years. The 1999 murder of Belinda Temple remains one of the most examined homicide cases in Texas. The investigation, the trials, and the years of legal proceedings have all been built upon the forensic findings of that winter afternoon. The statements of the witnesses who lived in the neighborhood and the evidence preserved from the master bedroom closet where Belinda's life was taken. On Friday, the 10th of December, 1971, 18-year-old Lynn Catherine Schulze left her dormitory at Middlebury College in Vermont and walked into what would become an enduring mystery. Her journey that afternoon seemed routine at first, a college freshman in the midst of a New England winter term, expected back for the holidays. But hours later, she vanished. Her room remained intact. Her money, identification, and belongings were left behind. And today, more than 5 decades later, her disappearance continues to challenge investigators and haunt her family. Lynn grew up in Simsbury, Connecticut, the daughter of Otto and Virginia Schulze. She graduated with honors from her high school in 1971, having shown promise academically and engaging in extracurricular activities. She earned commendations for standardized testing, took part in outdoor clubs, and planned to travel and study. Her sister described her as bright, independent, and curious. In September 1971, Lynn enrolled at Middlebury College, a small liberal arts school in Vermont. She boarded in Battle Hall, and her routines included classes, hikes in the nearby hills, membership in the college outdoor club, and frequent phone calls and letters home. Friends said she was adjusting to college life, though she occasionally expressed frustration with her schedule and coursework. On the morning of her disappearance, Lynn attended classes. The day progressed normally until the early afternoon. At about 12:30 p.m., she was seen outside a downtown health food store named All Good Things in Middlebury, buying dried prunes. She told a friend she had missed a bus to New York City and intended to take another. 15 minutes later, she returned to the campus dormitory, asked to borrow her favorite pen, and was last seen inside her room. At approximately 2:15 p.m., Lynn was observed standing at a bus stop across the street from the health food store and near a small gas station in downtown Middlebury. Those were the final confirmed sightings of her. She never made the exam scheduled for 1 p.m. Hers was the room, the route, the moment that slipped out of view. When she failed to return that evening and the following day, campus authorities assumed she had left town for the break. It was not until Monday that complaints were raised. Her family was notified. When police searched her dorm, They found her driver's license, college ID, and the bulk of her clothing and personal items undisturbed. Withdrawn cash and recent wages remained untouched. Her report bank statements and checkbook were in place. Investigators determined the only missing element was the clothing she wore that day and the backpack she carried. The scene suggested she did not leave voluntarily under normal circumstances. Law enforcement at the time canvassed the area. They interviewed roommates, classmates, friends, and dorm advisors. They compiled a timeline: noon purchase of dried prunes at All Good Things, returned to dorm at 12:45 p.m., confirmed absence from scheduled exam, final sighting at 2:15 p.m. Beyond that, nothing reliable. Rumors emerged of hitchhikers, of someone entering vehicles in the woods outside town, of possible sightings in nearby states. But every lead proved thin. The case file grew. The questions multiplied. Several observations raised concern. The bus stop where Lynn was seen stood adjacent to a small station and gas service building. The store she visited only doors away had been owned or operated by Robert Durst from 1971 to 1972. Investigators later took note of this connection, though, at the time of her disappearance, there was no public link declared. The broader environment of small hours, lightly trafficked rural roads, and the college student away from home made the theoretical window of vulnerability small but real. The question of whether she had walked toward the bus stop, attempted to return to campus, or encountered someone in the downtown district remains open. Over the following decades, the case remained unsolved. State and local police periodically reopened the investigation. In 1992, the case was declared cold. Occasional leads surfaced. One witness claimed to have seen a young woman matching Lynn's description south of town near US Route 7 later on December 10. Another claimed to have carried her to a roadside aid station. None of these tips produced conclusive findings. Archive records show the whereabouts of her friends and schedule of classes for that day, the date of her last recorded bank transaction, and the time of her last confirmed sighting, all preserved carefully but with no resolution. Her family held vigil. They issued missing person posters, contacted national databases, and asked for public help. Yet the trail lasted years without closure. In March 2015, the case drew renewed attention when Middlebury police announced they were investigating Robert Durst's possible connection to Lynn's disappearance. A tip received in 2012 noted that Durst had owned the health food store where Lynn was seen purchasing prunes. Investigators emphasized that while they considered him a person of interest, no charges were filed. No public evidence linked him definitively to the disappearance. Detectives reviewed decades-old records, searched properties formerly associated with Durst, and asked for community information about unusual activity near the store in 1971. Despite the revived focus, no new forensic evidence emerged publicly. Still, the announcement rekindled media coverage and brought attention back to the case. By the early 2022, overlays of digital forensics, extended missing persons databases, and renewed genealogical technology raised hopes among investigators. Teams reviewed the original police files, examined previously ignored witness statements, and sought to match personal belongings found in remote areas to Lynn's profile. Yet, as of 2025, no confirmed identification of remains, no confession, and no conviction exist in the case. The silence remains. For her family, her sister Anne, her brother, and deceased parents, the gap between the 10th of December, 1971, and the present has been filled with unanswered what-ifs. Lynn never returned home for winter break. She never greeted her friends in Simsbury. Her name remained on national missing person lists. Her photograph unchanged. Her story memorialized in cold case files. Every birthday, every holiday, the family held on to hope that she might walk through the door or that a relative might call with the truth. The disappearance of Lynn Schulze remains one of the enduring mysteries of Vermont. The college freshman, who entered the campus full of promise, left only footprints in the snow and a photograph. Investigators continue to ask for anyone who may have seen her after 2:15 p.m. On December 10th, 1971, or anyone who may have information about vehicles, purchases, or strange persons near downtown Middlebury that day. In reflecting on the case, one simple fact emerges. Lynn's belongings were left behind. Her bank funds remained untouched. She did not vanish into independence. She was with community, with routine, with friends, and then she walked away from all of it without trace. The questions remain unclosed. Who saw her last? Who drove the route she did not finish? Where are her remains? And why does her name still register only as unanswered? Though decades have passed, Lynn Schulz's case remains active. Middlebury police urge anyone with information, no matter how small, to contact the department. The case remains between the hours of December 10th and the present. The timeline may stretch long, but the hope remains persistent.